All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the most talked about night shows on Wednesdays. Yes, and it is the Red Hot Topic. I'm your Jersey boy, your host for tonight, and tonight we have an amazing topic. I am not too so into this, like I don't have much info, but what I know, we're gonna blow your socks off. So,
What are we talking about tonight?
we're going to talk about what's happening all over the world right now, right? It's big trends with diets. Every time there's a new diet coming up, it's also going to lead us to anyone who is out here for the first time and probably looking forward to how can actually you can discover about a longevity detox. We're going to be talking about that at the end as well. So everybody pay attention, pay attention. And from the beginning of forever, it's like mankind has always been curious about how can we actually live some extra years from the beginning of Hebrew stories from with Methuselah to even Juan Ponce de Leon, who's trying to get the fountain of youth. And even in today's world where we're actually being able to see, we can stretch out a few more. But on top of that, there's a big rage with diets. You know, which one is the best? They're all good. They all work for certain reasons. But tonight, we're just going to uncover a little layer that might be hidden because we're going to talk about the vegetarian diet. Do they live longer? And tonight, joining me, nonetheless, that the man with a brain of an incredible power right now, who is pouring her heart out, and she's going to be here with me tonight. Bestseller author of 21 Pounds in 21 Days, all the way from the way top in the Northeast over there from Martha's Vineyard. She's the co-founder of Martha's Vineyard's Holistic Retreat. She's been on pretty much every platform you can imagine, on TV shows, radio shows. She's been everywhere, bringing a message of hope and of change. And tonight we're going to talk about this longevity diet, or actually, if it's the vegetarian diet, do people actually live longer? So please help me welcome, as she deserves, Dr. Roni DeLuz. What's up, Rockstar?
I only talk about at the retreat. You know that, right? It's like all these people on YouTube, right? And they're my colleagues. Some of them are my friends, right? And they're all nuts. And I love them all because they're all wrong. And then they're all right. It depends on the time of the day, the time of the year, right? And I call it food chaos. I've been doing food for 40 years. As a naturopath, that's what we do, right? So I wanted to just basically like be real when it comes to working with you, because I just love working with you.
I'm the one honored to be on here tonight with such an amazing human being. So keep bringing that fire. It's going to be a great topic. I'm telling you, it's going to be a great topic because it's trending all over.
That's when you know it's good. Yeah, absolutely.
For 30 years, I've been doing this subject matter. And it's only because, as a naturopath, I've always been available to my friends who are my colleagues, who are medical doctors, because they're honest. I went to school with some of them. They're honest. I worked in hospitals with some of them. They totally get it. I don't know anything about nutrition. They will call me and they'll ask me, they will go, I did this blood work on so-and-so and so-and-so, and there's low vitamin D, low vitamin E, and low zinc. And so I would say, well, a person with that have what's called an autoimmune condition. Now, you got to remember, I've been doing this for 35, 40 years, and it literally, the question would be, so what autoimmune condition? But today, in 2024, we have hundreds of autoimmune. There's so many autoimmune conditions that we just stopped giving it a name. We just call it autoimmune. Being a nutritarian, I don't know if I said that already, because people want to put me in a category. Are you a vegetarian? Are you a vegan? Are you a carnivore? What do you stand for, Dr. Roni? I says, I stand for nutrients. What about you?
I like that.
I'm all about nutrients. If vegetables give me the nutrients that I need, I'm okay. I'm a vegetarian that day. If taking some fish and a piece of beef give me what I need, if I need B12 that day, I'm going to take that. And I think that if everyone understands that it's not about the food, we live in a world of food chaos. It's about the nutrients, because I can give you a whole list of problems that my vegetarians have. Do you know that's how I became really famous? By doing the detox first, but also because there would be vegetarians flying in to see me because they had no idea that they were sick because of their diet. No one was telling them this. No doctor will say, oh, you have B12 deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, you have an essential fatty acid deficiency. And these were things that were happening with them that they didn't understand why they were feeling so bad. Because there's something wrong with our food. You know that, Omar. So I like talking to you. You know that.
Especially right here in US, where
Yeah.
we have the highest. Take notes of this. We have the highest percent and amount of processed and ultra processed foods in USA. Just for sidekicks, take that side note, just so you can imagine what we're facing, what we're dealing with every day. I love that you mentioned nutritarian. Nutritarian, was it? Because it really goes into what you should be looking for. And I love that because in today's world, I think it was about 2016, 2017, a term in science and in medicine started coming out. They're still developing it, which is called precision medicine. And this is going to allow a lot of doctors down in the future to have biometrics and bio-tracking to know what people are lacking at that moment. So you're going to be able to learn. Now, this is future talking. I'm going to give you a little ahead because I've read a little bit. I've dug into videos and I've seen this. They're developing devices where you can track it from your phone, even from the glucose one from 2018. That one, it goes beyond where it's going to tell you exactly what you're low or deficient in that day. So you don't go eat just anything. Now you're going to be able to say, okay, you know what? I'm low on this. I'll probably have some veggies. I'm low on this. I'll probably have a steak. So it's really going to go tailored to each person what you need. And I love that you said that nutritarian, was it? Because it's so needed. That's what we need, nutrients.
Yeah, that's really what it is. And so I'm on YouTube and I'm looking at my colleagues and I'm sort of laughing because if they did their own blood work, they would realize that they need nutrients, not just meat, not just vegetables, not just fruit, right? We need it all. That's why it was put on this earth. So when I talk to them about, and we can have a whole session on carnivores because there's a lot of carnivores out there, but that's not the place or the time today. We don't have enough time. But I just want to talk about being a vegetarian. Do I eat a lot of vegetables? Yes, I do. Do I call myself a vegetarian? No, I do not. I used to call myself a vegetarian 20 years ago with the hippie. Remember the hippies? They were all into they were, so I was in with the in crowd and back then I called myself a vegetarian and I did it for a little while. But let me tell you, 80% of vegetarians today revert back. They just can't do it anymore. And so I started asking, and by the way, I see vegetarians here a lot because the first thing they think about is maybe I need to detox. But while they're detoxing, they're learning a lot. And what they're learning is they have nutrient deficiencies, a lot of them, not just one. They have vitamin A deficiency. And you're going to ask me why, because you just don't get these things in just vegetables. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you don't get all of these nutrients with vegetables. However, you can, and I can tell you how you can, is hard work. If it wasn't hard work, why would I have so many vegetarians as clients, right? It's hard work and a lot of money. So they were showing up with vitamin A deficiencies, vitamin B12 deficiency, iron deficiency, calcium deficiency, vitamin D, and vitamin K. Though that was the top of the list for deficiencies that I found in my vegetarians. And then I found that a lot of them had autoimmune conditions. Now, I didn't know what the autoimmune specific name was. A lot of these diagnoses, even medical doctors don't know. So naturopaths rely on them a lot for the diagnosis, right? So we treat whole body medicine. They treat specific disease entities. So of course, my question will always be, so what is the autoimmune? And now today, a lot of medical doctors are just calling it autoimmune, because they just don't know. But I know that a lot of it stems from high inflammatory processes in the body, wicked high inflammation. And a lot of it, their CRP levels are so high, we start looking at CEA levels, wondering if they even have cancer. But some of it, you wouldn't believe that the oxalate overload from vegetables can be a huge issue. People, you got to think, if you eat a lot of the same foods, right? You're going to have a problem. If you eat a lot of green vegetables, you're going to have a high oxalic overload. If you eat a lot of meat, you're going to have a high nitrate type levels. Every food group, if you overdo it, you're going to have some issues. Now, what my vegetarians would say to me when they came, the number one thing why they would quit, because I don't know if I told you this. Did I say 80% quit?
Yeah.
80% quit. All right. So I wanted to know why they quit. I know why I quit, but I wanted to know why they quit. Same issues, brain fog. Oh, they had so much gas bloating. A lot of them were weak. Some of them couldn't sleep at night. I specifically remember this big one was like exercise intolerance. And people just wanted to like feel good. Feel good, you share good. That's what Jillian said all the time. How are you gonna share good if you don't feel good,
You don't
right?
feel it.
And
I love
so,
that.
they basically wanted they had so many GI issues, it was unbelievable. And not what young girl or a young lady want to be passing gas all day. So that was like a no-brainer for them. I'm not going to be bloated and passing gas all day. Well, they were overdosing on fiber. Your body has to have the opportunity to be able to move fiber along, process fiber out of the colon. And if your body's not able to do that, you're going to bloat. Then you're going to start having all kinds of GI issues. And I find that just a lot of my vegetarians no longer have the stomach acid that they needed. Because when you start doing vegetables and fruit, you decrease your stomach acid because you don't need it anymore, right? Or at least you think you don't. But you eat one piece of meat and there's no stomach acid, you're in a whole lot of trouble. And
That's
not only
amazing.
that,
It's good that you mentioned that. Real quick, the conversation wasn't with me, but I was listening because they were next to me. So these guys were talking about, they were going to the gym, and now you can see everywhere all these plant-based proteins, which, okay, they have their place, but one was arguing about, no, my protein is better than theirs, whatever. But the dudes go to the gym, and sorry to say, but they have a huge gut. Like their belly is huge. Like they look like they have muscle, but their belly is huge. And now that you're mentioning that, sometimes all that fiber, if it's not soluble and if it's not needed, because you have an extra, you're gonna blow. And that kind of
yeah,
like hit me, like, wow, I kind of saw that.
yeah. And nobody, that's a game changer when you have bloat. Like, I be wanting to talk about other things like, okay, so what's going on with your energy? What's going on with do you have neuropathy? And they kept saying, but there's so much bloat, Dr. I, so much bloat. And people just can't handle that, right? So you got to wonder why it is that why vegetarians give us this false impression that is all good. You got to wonder, right? So, I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I understand why people think that is the best thing going. I totally get it. Let me tell you why, right? First of all, even for me, when I see them, I know why people think vegetarians are healthier. You know why? They look healthier, don't they? You ever seen them? Some of them, most of them.
Some of them are slim, they look healthy.
Yeah, of course. But at the end of the day, you got to realize they try hard. That's why they say vegetarians are healthier. It's not that they are healthier. Some of them are, of course, but not all of them. But they present a picture of being healthier. I see the ones that aren't healthy. And that's why I'm on this platform talking to you about that. And I may not see a lot of them that are healthy, but there's certainly a lot of them that are not healthy, and thus the 80% that revert back. And it's a lot of reasons why they can't be a good vegetarian. But first of all, the problem is that we think they're healthier because they may drink more water. They do exercise more, right? They do eat less junk food. They don't smoke cigarettes, and they drink no alcohol or less alcohol, and they just look healthier. But the bottom line is, Omar, blood work don't lie. Okay? And so you get their blood work back and you go, whoa. So you got to ask them, what's going on? What's really going on? And then you find out that a lot of them are diehards no matter what. They're going to keep doing what they do because there's no coaching involved to tell them that their situation is not good. Not that vegetarians, and I'm never going to say vegetarians is not good. I'm going to say it's just not good for everyone. Listen, I know any human being can create a perfect diet for a health situation or nutrient deficiency. And I believe that. And I'll say it again. Any human being can create a perfect diet for a health situation or a nutrient deficiency. It doesn't matter. You could call it what you want. You could call it vegetarian. You could call it carnivore. You could call it nutrient dense. You could call it vegan. You see, you hear what I'm saying? But the bottom line is that it's one diet is not good for all human beings. Because I've been practicing individualized wellness for over 30 years. And I see the blood work. And I know that not one diet will be perfect for all human beings. You see what I'm saying? And that's the thing we got to get across to people. It's the very thing that a lot of people will say to me, well, what's gluten brain, Dr. Roni? Because, you'll talk about people who eat a lot of gluten. I know people like that. They'll eat a lot of oats and they'll eat a lot of wheat and they'll eat just grains and grains and grains. And then all of a sudden they're the ones that tell me they have no brain energy. They can't think. They can't make the right decisions. And these are people making huge decisions in our country. But they have gluten brain, but they don't even know they have gluten brain. So someone like that, you got to take away the grains. What if you don't tell that person and they're eating rice and wheat and oats and vegetables all day long?
And that's turning into sugar in the body. And the problem is the body becomes basically immune to it, but it builds up. So all that insulin spikes up, but the insulin picks up a little bit, it's just higher. And it says, all this stuff, I'm going to store it as fat. That's why a lot of people get, because of chronic stress, they also get something called cortisol belly. Belly starts storing as fat. Fat starts affecting their hearts. And a lot of people that I've heard people who have, who were vegetarians for quite a while. I had a lady in one of my keto groups, and she was a vegetarian for a while. She told me she was at a point where she was feeling heart point, like some stuff in her heart sometimes, and she was eating clean supposedly, but there was nutrient deficiency and there was stuff that she was missing because of what you were mentioning before. You don't get everything. You don't get the building blocks of your body. You don't get the breakdowns. You don't get the omegas. You don't get a lot of other stuff that vegetarians, they eat good, but they don't have all the nutrients, and especially essential ones.
And it's so hard to get it. It's not like you can just say, okay, you eat all these vegetables all day long, and then you go, well, you've been told, well, you have vitamin D deficiency. Do you know how many vegetables you got to eat or carbs to get that vitamin D? I can't even, you won't get it. You will not. All my vegetarians have always had a vitamin D deficiency. Not that some of them won't, because some of them are smart enough to do supplementation. But there's just a lot of vegetarians that don't do the supplementation that they need to do because they have not gone into what's called integrative alternative wellness medicine. And that's when you start finding out who you really are. Look, I'm a human being. I had to find out who I was. I didn't know that some of the things about me that was going on in my body, because I looked good, feel good, and sound good. People thought it was just perfect. But I always say blood work don't lie, So at some point you got to fix the problem. People believe that they can just go out and get all these nutrients with just one food group. It's just not true. You can't do it. I don't care what doctor tell you can. Now, some of them will say meat is the most dense food. Yes, that's true. And there's good things about being a vegetarian. And I'm not saying not to be a vegetarian. I'm just saying learn how to do it right.
So, and that's a good question right there. Let's say if I really wanted to be a vegetarian, I'd say one day I just woke up, you know what? I want to be a vegetarian. What does it really take? Like, what does it take to be a vegetarian healthy?
Yes. Yeah. So so before I get into that, I'm going to say, you can be a great vegetarian. It's a hard fight. Okay. Not for everyone, but it's for most of my patients and clients in the last 30 years, it has been a hard fight. And it's not your fault that it's a hard fight. Let's look at the reality of the situation. So we want to just talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And the vegetarianism is good for the environment. Let's face it, it's good for our environment. But for human beings, it depends. Okay? So I'm not saying that it is a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's a hard fight. The first thing is you got to be very intentional to be a good vegetarian. You got to have education to be a good vegetarian. You got to have some coaching. even I did the wrong things when I was a vegetarian. Okay, I thought being a good vegetarian was to eat a whole lot of bananas and mangoes and all that stuff, right? I had to learn that that's not a good vegetarian. And you got to have consistency. You got to have emotional stability to understand what you're doing. But more important than that, you have to have a doctor that's willing to do the right blood work.
That's
So I don't know
powerful.
how many things I've listed, but I've listed some things that will show you. So how do I know all this? The first thing is that I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen people who have osteoporosis. They've been a vegetarian for 20 something years. I've seen many autoimmune conditions because they've been a vegetarian for so many years. I've seen hypothyroidism. I've seen metabolic syndrome, and I understand what oxidative overload and GI issues are all about as a vegetarian. So I don't tell people, okay, quit being a vegetarian. What I do is say, let's fix this by increasing these supplements into your diet. And man, there's a lot of them that you got to increase in their diet. And it's not their fault, but you know, and I know while we're on this line together, that our food just doesn't have what it takes anymore. You just can't go out there and think you're going to eat these vegetables and be healthy. Those days are long gone.
Yeah,
The
and
soil
especially in
is so
today's
bad.
world where you don't even know
Yes,
what you're putting in your body. You know, it's
right.
one thing I want to take a little parenthesis here, just a side note. You were mentioning about you eating fruits and stuff like that, and that's part of the probably the vegetarian regimen. There's a doctor, fairly young, the longevity doctor called Dr. Rhonda Patrick, I think it is, something like that. She talks about how bananas has an enzyme that it causes a polyphenol oxidase. So you don't get the nutrients from the berries when you mix bananas with berries. In a smoothie, a lot of nutritionists and gym people, they're trying to give you a smoothie with berries and bananas. You're not getting no polyphenols from the berries if you mix it with banana because of an enzyme that it has. It destroys it. It doesn't allow you to. So people are
Right.
putting stuff in the body thinking this is healthy. I
I
just got to
know.
work out. But
I
they're not
know.
actually doing nothing.
You know, God bless all the nutritionists out there in the world. And now we've got really good ones, especially the young ones. The young nutritionists, they got this, right? But the older nutritionists, they've just been so brainwashed that they just don't get it. You can't even talk to them about nutrition because they don't even understand. They don't even understand the role of the enzymes. And why are you taking enzymes? They say. I go, well, have you been in the world in the last 30 years? Do you know that we're not processing our food because our food don't have the right nutrients that it's supposed to have in it? So we got to be real with each other and we got to educate our young because if we don't, they're going to be growing up with lack of nutrition and cancer is already out of control with our kids.
Mm.
A lot of it is that their immune system is so beat up, so low that they can't keep up with health like my grandmother did when she was young, right? My grandmother died at 100, right? But my grandmother just ate out of the garden. I talked to Siobhan about it a lot. Hopefully one day she's going to come to Martha's Vineyard. We're going to change this place because
Mm.
I think people should stop saying how it's so hard to grow. I watched my grandmother. She had a third grade education. I never seen her say, oh, it's so hard to grow these collard greens, my dear. It was in some dirt. And it was just like in a couple of weeks, there it was, all kinds of vegetables. So we've been brainwashed to think that it's hard to grow our own vegetables and herbs. It's not. We got to get back to nature. And when we get back, perhaps our vegetables will be good enough. But right now, our vegetables is not good enough. And that is the reason why we have vegetarians, because we're on the subject of vegetarians. One day we'll be on the subject of carnivore. They'll have their day. But today we're talking about vegetarians, right? That we now know that it takes work to be a great vegetarian. But also we have to understand why it is that some of them have osteoporosis, autoimmune, hypothyroidism, metabolic syndrome is off the chart. That metabolic syndrome is almost like autoimmune. There's so many of them now. Which one do you have? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
right. Hey, I got this one. Which one you got? I got the number 20 down there, but yeah. But now that you're touching on that, it's interesting. I think it was in 2018, late 2018, they started working with senolytic therapies. Senolytic is attacking these cytokines in the body that cause
Yeah,
these senescent cells. They're not causing anything but inflammation. A lot of
right.
the itis, like arthritis, rheumatoids, all the stuff that comes right now that's happening, it's because of inflammation in the body that's
That's right.
caused by these senescent cells that are not dying, but that they're kind of dead, but they refuse to die. So that's why they call them zombie cells. But it's interesting because a lot of this stuff that's happening with the autoimmune, conditions, it's because of inflammation in the body. That your body doesn't react to it. Your immune system, it flies right by it. There's no radar to protect it. It's like, hey, they don't check it because of the cytokines that secretes all these proteins called cytokines. The immune system says, oh well, these are okay because they're secreting something, but they're secreting inflammation, and that's causing even worse damage.
And you want to know why? I talk about obesity a lot. I have obesity in my family, and I always have to be careful because we just gain weight really easily. But the one thing that, if you want to know why there's a lot of obesity, is because of what you just said: increase in cytokines, inflammation. Because see, the body always wants to protect you, right? So when you have high inflammation, it's heat, and it's also free radicals, and there's a lot of things. So what the body does to protect you is it increases toxic water, right? It draws water to you. So now you have edema, which you think is fat. And that's why this protocol, this detox that we're all doing for longevity, a lot of it is going to be getting rid of inflammation. It's really hard to talk about all the great things that the detox do for you, because sometimes the healer shows up when the client's ready. And I can't just show up and start talking about all these things if you're not ready, because sometimes it could scare people. Like, I love when you talk about senescent cells, which we call zombie cells, or cells that are just hanging out. But hanging out means it's taking up room, right? And if it's taking up room, you got to know that it's congesting up your vascular system. When you need your vascular system to be clean so you could have good oxygenation, and along the way, it brings the good nutrients to your organs. But if it's filled up with zombie cells and vascular spike protein, you're in trouble. And that's why the detox. And I know people love this, and I don't want to burst their bubble, and it's all about weight loss for them. I get it. Yeah, I want to look good too. But at the same time, those people who are having healing opportunity, I want them to know that there's a huge price, a great miracle at the end. And if you can sustain that, you'll have a cleaner body, a leaner body, and that along the way helps you to bring nutrients to your cellular space, which actually helps heal your organs. It's not just weight loss. There's so many benefits. And I just love talking about that subject. And I know it's a little bit off the subject, but
that's music to my ears. That subject, like we can make a whole show on that, because that's really, like, I love hearing that, especially coming from you. Like, I'm hearing like a little kid, because it's deep, but it's so interesting at the same time. It's so enlightening. A lot of people think that just that people that some good nutritionists might say, hey, you got to stop sugar just because you got to stop sugar. No, it's what causes the sugar in your body. Sugar causes a little something, a protector in your membrane in your cells that doesn't allow all the mitochondria to function correctly. It doesn't allow to take nutrients to your other cells, because it's blocking the membrane in your cells. So this is a whole deep. That's a whole another rabbit hole. We'll talk about another day. But it fascinates me. I love that stuff.
The other thing is, I had a vegetarian. This was my last vegetarian that I had here. People are getting better. They're coming to me in better shape. Let's put it that way. And, he said to me that he just wanted to go to the gym and work out, and that he was just really having a difficult time. So I said to him, did it ever occur to you that eating all the vegetables was not helping your muscle status? And he said, but I eat some beans and rice, and that's, protein. I said, so let me explain to you about amino acids. There's 22 necessary amino acids. And when we say essential amino acids, right? The word essential means you can't live without it, right? So you can't just go and eat a plate of beans every now and then and think you've got all your essential amino acids, especially if you want to go to the gym and work out at the level that he wanted to work out, with low B12, low hemoglobin, low vitamin D, and a whole lot of inflammation. He was a mess, but he was a vegetarian, but he wanted to work out. So I have to explain to people that it takes the right amount of nutrients, the right amount of amino acids, essential amino acids. That's called protein. And it's called essential, which means you can't live without it. But then man, the way we are, man, when I mean man, I mean us humans, okay? we want to be able to create our own. You know, we want to be able to say, oh, I can do it without eating meat. Let me just take a whole lot of this. And that's when you start having gastric issues. Now, you can do it with the right protein smoothie. And I can show people how to do that. Because, you know, I did have some diehards, and I still have diehards, but I fixed them. And it wasn't hard. But you got to come.
We're going to be covering a lot of that in the group of Longevity Detox. So I think anybody who's interested in learning more about that, I think that'll be a good one to have you live in the group and give us all the good nuggets in there. That'd be interesting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing that we get to this point where myself as a nutritarian, I had to learn to believe in nutrients. I've been doing this work for a lot of years, but I had to fall down a few times. So I wasn't born like this. I learned this along the many, many years of doing this work. But mostly the people that teach me are my clients who fail. And then I have to go and dig into their history and their years of doing what they did and their blood work and their scans and all of that to find out why they fail. And then I'm able to teach other people why this doesn't work for all people. And so the vegetarians out there that look good have to go beyond that. And I'm inviting that they go beyond that looking good, because a lot of people who are thin are not healthy. And I see that. I can see them just by looking at their eyes, because I did iridology when I was younger. And so you can see nutrients easily through the skin of someone, through their eyes, their hair, and all of it. And unfortunately, I'm in a type of industry called wellness, holistic wellness, when I will get the ones that don't look good here. Because if they look good, they wouldn't come here, right?
Or so they think, yeah.
Yeah.
So before we're going to be wrapping it up pretty soon, since we're going to be, hopping on the other meeting. But before we go into that, we have one question. What's the one good thing about being a vegetarian?
Well, the one good thing about being a vegetarian, and I like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. That vegetarianism is good for our environment. For humans, it depends. You can be a good vegetarian, but I'm telling you today, we don't live in the same times that my grandmother lived in. She was a perfect vegetarian, but back in the garden, they didn't spray her. The nutrients, the soil was optimal. The essential fatty acids, it was everywhere. The nutrients was everywhere. She didn't, if I was to do her blood work at 95 years old, she had a great blood work. We are living in the land of the plenty, but we are starving, Omar.
I'm going to borrow that line. That is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the one good thing. And I wish that I had a lot of good things to say, but the other good thing, so besides that, vegetarianism is good for the environment. The other thing that you can be a great vegetarian, but I believe from the average person, it's a hard fight. Because you got to do 5 things. Forgot what I said. But I think I said something like, you got to be very intentional. You've got to have education. You got to know your blood work. You got to know who you are. If you don't know who you are, I'll ask people when they come here, I say, so what's your blood type? Oh, I don't know, Dr. Roni. I go, you got to know what your blood type is. I go, so what is your nutrient status? Or what do you mean by that? You got to know who you are. Do you have good calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin B12, vitamin B complex, zinc? And so that the reason why I don't hide this, why I signed up for life, because I've always believed that it's your immune system that will create longevity. And I tell people this all the time. So why is that? The first thing is you have to know who you are, but you've got to make sure that your immune system is always there to catch the thing that's going to try to take you out. That's the bacteria, the viruses, and all of those things that come along the way. And that's most of the time it's because you don't have good nutrition. It's why your immune system will fail you. But I haven't said anything at all to touch people's hearts. You got to know that if you don't have good nutrition, your immune system will not be able to sustain you.
And then will attack you with the autoimmune. Autoimmune is attacking the whole tissue, that they're the same body. That's where this comes in with the transfer factor. This is the difference. Anybody who wants to take these notes? I'm no doctor, by the way. But this is the difference between boosting the immune system and you empowering your immune IQ. When you empower your immune IQ, you give your body the intelligence. So it's alert all the time. It's modulated. It's not incredibly high or hyper where it's attacking you, or it's very low where you just, you're going to be exposed to a lot of threats.
Yeah.
So it's very important to take that. You can take that to the bank. It's going to deliver. But it's the difference between immune IQ and boosting and empowering the immune IQ.
Yes.
Love that.
You're just awesome. So I'm sad
to better because you touch on stuff that I like, and you kind of like you feed into me. So I really thank God for your life, because you're just such a big blessing to our whole group, to this world, to everybody who's around you. I noticed that everybody who's close to you, around you, or works with you, they have something very peculiar and very unique. They have a unique smile because they're around you, and that's thanks to you. Thanks to everything you keep bringing to this world. Thanks to the person you are. Thanks to the heart you have to be doing this, willingly. It's like, any person gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna risk my, my title, my career. I'm not. No, you say it as it is. And we need more people like you to make this difference, make an impact in the world. And this is where you come in, and this is why you're creating such a huge wave. These ripples of happiness are going all over the world because of you. And thank you for that.
Yeah, I learned something today. Alice and I went to an event, and the subject of the event was anxiety. And what we learned at that event was you have the opportunity to not take fear and depression and stress and turn it into something called anxiety. Because by the time it gets to anxiety, that's the diagnosis that causes you to do one or two things. You go get medications, you do drugs, or you do alcohol. Okay. So I'm telling people that with nutrients and supplementation in the right way, you can prevent not just chronic disease, but you can not ever have to feel anxiety.
I love that. And prevention is the best medicine. I love that. And one thing that aligns so perfectly with tonight's topic is that if you look at any people who study demographics and is trying to see, what they call blue zones, there's something called blue zones. And especially there's a city called Monaco right there over there in Monte Carlo in the Mid-Eastern, where they say these people tend to live a little longer by nature, basically. Yeah, some of it plays genetics, but most of it, if not all, it's the diet. So we always have to see what we're lacking or deficient, but always include a little bit of everything that you feel comfortable. Don't go too extra with the meat. Don't go too extra on one side. It's never good to go extra on either way. But always look for try your best. I'm no expert at this. To try your best to understand and listen to your body, if it makes sense. Your body's gonna tell you sometimes what you're be deficient, and that's the best way to go. Sometimes Google helps, but the best way is to have a good coach like Dr. Roni to give you the right directions of what you need.
Thank you. It was a great session. It's always a lot of fun to work with you, Omar, because I could speak from my heart, not just my experience and not just from my education. But I think if I take all three of them, I think that we can really deliver the truth to people.
Amen. Amen. The truth will always prevail. Like I always say, the day that God calls you, you will be remembered and echoed in the hearts of everyone who got the opportunity to meet you. And I'm one of them. I'm blessed to be. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for pouring your heart, for bringing truth overall, and for being you. Because you didn't hide anything. You just wanted to be real. And this is why this is a real red hot topic. Uncovered, unfiltered, uncensored, raw, brought to you. All right. If anybody wants to have any questions, you can bring them to the group. But let's give a big round of fire emojis on the screen. Light it up. Let's give a big thanks to Dr. Roni for her time and her busy schedule, carving out that time to be here with us, to deliver the message, to bring her heart and let her be felt. Thank you so much, Dr. Roni. God bless you abundantly. I can't wait till one of these days hug your neck.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a great one, guys. Remember, your body's the only place you're going to spend the rest of your life. Take care of that thing.